Hey, welcome to Make a Mixtape. I am Zach Little, and today on the show we have what I believe is the 5th appearance from longtime friend of the show, Mackenzie Keith. Today, it's in honor of the release of his newest record, a project that is called Little Miss Echo. It's really good, and so I wanted to get Mackenzie on here right away to talk about it. Mackenzie has also released some great records under his own name, performed in a duo called The Meltdowns, and also DJs under the memorable name DJ Thick Lizzy. Our talk is up first, then there's another thing at the end of the episode today, a little side B essay, if you will. So let's get into it. Is this the first full-length album you've released since Sumo?
Yeah. So it's like 7 years.
7 years. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that went by very quickly.
Well, it's very good, and I wanted to have something on the show to talk about it and to sort of be able to like play some clips and get people to listen to it.
Thank you.
And so, but what was the first thing that kind of struck me listening to it was I was like, oh, this feels like it's got everything in it, you know?
Cool.
Like it feels like okay, so wait, let's go back, right? The first time that you were on this podcast was we talked about Sumo around the time it came out in 2017. And that was, that was like a rock record. And then
Definitely.
After that, you kind of had a variety of electronic-based musical projects. So there was like the Meltdowns, and you were doing a lot of DJing. And is there any other like project names that I missed in there?
The only thing was that I also like put out like a beat tape on 420 a few years ago.
Oh yeah, okay, I remember that.
Yeah. So and that was more like hip hop production, but then a lot of like house production with the DJ Thick Lizzy stuff, and then I had to sort of abandon the indie rock, kind of construct I had in my head of like, this is the music that I make. This is like what I could do in a live context. And then, I just got kind of sick of it and, came back around for sure. But I think that period of a lot of like experimentation and like electronic, music and like learning how to use my recording software a lot more tactfully instead of just trying to get something down, that I think that definitely informed like a lot of the sound of this new stuff for sure. And some of these songs are from like 2019 and like maybe like 2018. I know you saw a couple of the Meltdowns shows, so that like a couple of these songs were in like very embryonic stages when you like saw them live in like 5 years ago or something, which is crazy. But
yeah, that's new for you, right? Because you've been releasing music at like a pretty good clip since you were like a teenager. So is it really strange to keep a song afloat for like 6 years?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it wasn't, my first preference for sure. I think that I had gotten into a rut, especially after making those 3 records of like being just a brutal perfectionist and like a lazy perfectionist, and I couldn't get out of it for a long time. And I would write like a song here or there, and definitely like moving into that more sample based and kind of like electronically produced like world made it a lot easier for me to kind of like get away from myself. I just like was getting very, very hung up on like being like, if I play the guitar, then that's my ego talking or whatever, like all this like total like way too in your head, stuff. But yeah, so a lot of it is like it's almost like a compilation of like a lot of the stuff I've been working on over the last few years, but that's only about half the record. And then the new stuff, like there's about 5 or I think 6 songs. So the majority of the songs on the record have been made since I think it was like fall 2022. I started like really hunkering down and working on it. And then some of them were made, while we were mixing the record too. There's a couple of them that are like really new. So like there's only a few that are super old, but it is a trip for sure, especially playing it live. Like just being like, this is something that I used to do without any lyrics, before, and just kind of building things out slowly. I think that those, as much as I love, the 3 records that I made when I was younger, I feel like those, songwriting was pretty much there, but the arrangements were a little bit lacking just because I think, again, it was sort of that getting everything to tape and just kind of like letting it have a version. But I think with, taking that time, it really helped slowly build these and keep adding parts and experimenting and everything that I think ultimately makes the sound a lot stronger.
Yeah, I feel like when you have any kind of creative piece that you're making, that on a long enough timeline, it reaches this kind of equilibrium in your head where, like, there's something to be said for, like, all right, here's a record of how I'm feeling right now, right? Like songs or something that I made in a very short fixed period of time. But once you kind of get past that and you're making a different kind of artistic statement, then you have to start, like, cutting things and adding things and making these decisions that you wouldn't have made. And it's hard to reach the point where you can make peace with them. But then once you do, it's like, it's very freeing, right? When you're like, oh, wow, this thing that I thought had to be one way, it doesn't have to exist that way. It can exist in this different way that's actually better for it. And I really do see that now. And I'm not even lying to myself about it.
100%. Yeah. I relate to that so much. I mean, First Thought, Best Thought is amazing. And definitely, like, I think there's a lot of artists that can hone in on, just it's like Jay Mascis, like, he said that, like, every Dinosaur Jr. record is him trying to make the same album, and then he accidentally makes it different, like, through the stuff he's listening to or whatever. And I think that some people can do that really well. For me, I think that I get very hung up on, like, kind of boxing myself into, like, one sound. And I think that definitely a great way to do that is to kind of write a song in, like, one way and then arrange it to be a completely different thing. Like, there's a song called Space Age Friends on the new record. That's
one of my favorites.
Oh yeah, that's great. That definitely started out as more of, like, an indie rock jam, and that's how we play it live. But then on record, I was like, I want this to be both a house song and a, like, 1950s country song. And so that, like, kind of, turned into this very bizarre combination of sounds that I think makes it, like, really, like, unique and have a few different, like, layers to it.
So this project, right, it is a band, but it also is this album with these electronic textures. And we've talked about it as being this thing. We've already talked about the fact that, like, you've been assembling this sort of for years. And some of these songs are old and some of them are new, but the whole thing does feel very cohesive, both as just an album and as, like a student of your work. I'm like, oh, look, I can hear all this stuff, and I can even hear things like the last time you were on the show, we talked about, is it the Shuggy Otis song that has the bird calls in it?
Yes. Yeah.
And there's a song on this album that has, like, the bird calls in it.
Actually, I never put that together. That is funny. Yeah, I swear I'm not as obsessed with bird sounds as that would come off with that connection.
It's like you and JOANNA NEWSOM, like, you guys are keeping bird. So speaking of this, just practically speaking, where do you get the bird call recordings from? So
some of it is from, old internet archive sound effect websites and stuff, Creative Commons stuff. Some of it is, from old records. Some of it is from movies. Some of it is, from random YouTube videos and stuff. I definitely, like, wanted to go for that kind of, like, sound collage thing. Freesound.org. Shout out.
I love freesound.org. Oh my God.
That's
they're
so
the best.
Good.
Yeah.
I know.
I will, like, when I'm making videos, I will often go to, like, freesound.org and just pull footsteps and stuff, because it's a very funny thing. But if you're trying to make something that has, like, a comedic feeling to it, it's a very undersung aspect of it. But literally just like adding in sound effects like door slams and footsteps and stuff in the right places, it really adds something to it. And also, as a person who gets, like, I get really technically fixated, I really enjoy, like, syncing up the footsteps with, like, the person walking in the video. So it's a great, I feel like that's something that I can when I listen to this album, that's something that I can sense too, right? Is that it's very like technological playgroundy kind of thing, where like the way that some of the songs will end and then go into kind of like I'm not sure if it is a sample or not, but like what sounds like kind of like a sample beat kind of outro and that kind of thing. Like, I can feel the care and interest in the transition, right? Because I know how important that is. I know how important it is to get that right when you're moving from like one sound to the other. So it's very fun for me to listen to. I really enjoy that stuff.
That's great. That's awesome. Yeah, we really wanted to make it, that there is sort of like one split of silence in the record, and that is like ideally whenever I'm able to afford vinyl, like that would be where you turn it. But besides that, I mean, both sides of the record like pretty much, just completely blend into each other. There's not too many stops. There's some songs that like literally overlap or they fit into each other, and some of that is honestly I think like informed by my experience like DJing over the last few years and just really loving those like organic like kind of like songs communicating with each other and some of the interludes on this record are straight up like beats that I made or there's some sample stuff, but a lot of it is like either like ambient intros that I made or just little like sound experiments just from the last 5 years that I just thought I also wanted to include them, and I think that they worked as a way to kind of just like bridge the gap between a lot of very disparate sounding styles like across the record. So I think that wound up like making it surprisingly cohesive.
That's very satisfying, right? Though when you got some thing laying around, some little thing you're experimenting with, and like you find the right place to plug it in. It makes me think of like there was like this meme about like like how like dads always have like one like a weird piece of wood in the garage or something, and then they find the day comes they finally need that weird shaped piece of wood, and you're like, yes, it feels so good. And I have both analog and digital versions of that in my life, where like just a weird thing in a garage or just like a weird thing on a hard drive.
Do you have a weird piece of wood?
A bunch of weird pieces of wood. Yeah, although a lot of them are kind of like almost for sentimental reasons too. Like it'll be like a scrap of wood that that like the measurements of a project were written on or something, and so then you keep that because you're like, oh yeah, that's when we built that bookshelf. And then now the modern equivalent of that is like a scrap of wood that Arlo or Isaac stole and then like painted on, and then it's like, all right, now I want to keep this. Summer said, through the daisy chain, we could have been something. Okay, so you talked about the fact that you're playing this stuff live. So that was one of my questions for you, is that when you are recreating these songs live, what sort of percentage of their electronic sheen makes the trip?
We try to keep a good amount of it in. We've been working with this very bare bones setup of basically our drummer Matt, who also plays all over the record. He will basically have all of the tracks that aren't physically being played by us in real time on one end of a stereo spectrum, and the other end has a click track, and those are being run into the PA of whatever venue we're using. So it's only mono, so you don't get that full kind of textural thing. We're still working out the kinks of it. We try to recreate stuff, but there's also definitely like new context the songs kind of come into live. It's just I think it's also like cool for like someone who listens to the band to be able to kind of like listen to it on record, and then they have a live experience or certain lyrical changes or references to stuff that I try to do. I get on my Bono vibes and throw in old songs on top of the other stuff or whatever, and then so I just think it's a cool experience to not have it sound exactly like the record live too, but we try to keep a decent amount in.
I'm fascinated by this idea of playing live to a click track. So my friend Pat told me about this because, for the longest time he was like just like a pop punk drummer. And so that was like totally unheard of for him. But now he's playing it with a band that has, a little bit more, I don't know, they're almost a little more 90s in their sound or something. But so it's like the whole operation is not just like guitars, bass, and drums anymore. And so he's been playing to a click, and he's talking about how much he likes it as a drummer. And to me, in my head, I'm like, that seems so logistically complicated, right? To have this have this click track playing that everybody has to stay on, that like everybody's kind of partially paying attention to the whole time. So it's like that there's a percentage of your attention that's gone just for that part. But is that something that you've been doing for a long time? Are you used to that, or what's that like from your end?
Well, the beautiful thing about it is that the only person that has to deal with it is their drummer. So he's really the martyr of the situation. We're all kind of just like playing on top of it. So, you know, I think that it's definitely a struggle sometimes for you know, just especially, you know, when you're all hopped up on adrenaline and playing, and you know, like you want to rush it, but it's like it's actually like, you know, a little bit slower, or you know, I mean, it's definitely something that I think when we eventually, we're only, you know, a 3 or 4 piece depending on the show right now, and so I think when we get more people involved, it would be really nice to, you know, kind of like add more live sample triggering, or you know, people actually playing synthesizer parts live, so that way we can be less dependent on it. And I think that can also, you know, there's a lot of amazing moments, you know, especially on live records throughout the years, where it's just like people aren't playing exactly to tempo, and that can really like push a part of a song forward, you know. So there's a lot of experimentation to do on top of that. But because this record is like very much, you know, was born out of digital, you know, audio programs, I think that it, you know, for the time being, it's working okay.
I just find like that those kind of technological problems to be kind of fascinating, and I also just I don't think I ever really, my own experience with like playing live music was fairly limited, right? And so I never really got into like the advanced level technology of it, but I always find it, I like learning about it because it helps me appreciate live music more, to know that like there are these tracks that I'm not hearing that the drummer is hearing or whatever. And I feel like technology has also gotten a lot better in this way. You know, with like earpieces and everything else that people can use now. It all feels fairly new.
We're definitely in a weird spot too, where, you know, like I think are trying to use a lot of this like additional technology to just like a usual 4-piece setup, and try to include these electronics, but we're playing a lot of like DIY spaces right now. So trying to sort of like find a middle ground between like you know, not having a sound check and trying to get, you know, like a bunch of electronic elements to work on top of stuff. Like it's a struggle for sure. We're definitely, I mean, we only played 3 shows, so we're, you know, like we have like a decent amount more book coming ahead, but so I'm just looking forward to, you know, slowly getting better at it. And I'm definitely realizing in the process of like how much more comfortable I am in a recording atmosphere than in a live atmosphere, for sure.
So let me ask you this. What is something that you are listening to right now that you are really enjoying?
I gotta say, kind of a lot of people are talking about it, but I have not been able to get that Cindy Lee album out of my head over the last few months. Have you listened to that?
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yes, I have.
I just like it totally like rewrote, I don't know, for anybody listening that isn't familiar with it, the artist is Cindy Lee. They used to be in this band called Women back in the day, and this is their new, you know, project. They just released this like 2-hour plus album that's like only on YouTube, or has a, you know, a wave download that you can send, you know, Canadian money to for it. But it's just like this incredible, you know, masterpiece of lo-fi, you know, psych pop, you know, like girl group throwback stuff. It's just like totally like rewrote my brain of like what I've been enjoying. So I've like only been listening to like Phil Spector records, and like I've been reading interviews with them. Like, you know, I've been on this whole wormhole of finding all this like Cambodian like kind of, you know, girl group and like psych rock stuff from the 60s. And what about you? What have you been listening to?
I have been listening a lot to Maya Hawke's record.
Oh yeah, I still gotta check that out. That's cool.
So, because Christian Lee Hudson, who I love, is produced this record, and
okay,
I guess I didn't realize what a sonic signature this guy has.
Oh, he's like very much all over it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't, in terms of like the songwriting part, I don't know, but in terms of the production, for sure, like. There's even like, I remember there was like, there's just like a symbol or something on like the first song on the album that I was like, it's Christian Lee Hudson production right there. Like I can hear it so much. And so it's really cool to have like, it's like getting another record from him, but also filtered through this other artist's sensibility. And I went back, I heard like a couple of the Maya Hawke songs from earlier in her career, and it's like, okay, I can see how these two sensibilities met. Yeah, but it is that it's those merged sensibilities that is really doing it for me, and it feels very it feels like it's really in my like the early aughts Saddle Creek albums kind of wheelhouse too, like in terms of the way the album moves and its sequencing. And Nate Walcott from Bright Eyes did like all the string arrangements. So
very Zach coded.
Yes, it's very Zach coded. It's like the gang's all there. So as soon as I saw Nate Walcott posting about it too, I was like, well, of course I love this album. Like,
yeah,
I didn't even know, but there he is.
That's,
you know,
wild.
You struck the chaos angel, aiming for a lost balloon. She was perched upon a lamppost, singing in old ruin. My darling is always coming, my darling is leaving soon. You're absolutely loved, absolutely free. Members of the secret order, kingdom of the golden fleece. You walk warily toward her, you still have your arrow to retrieve. I want you, I love you, I promise, I'm sorry. I want you, I love you, I promise, I'm sorry. I want you, I love you.
And those, it's. I mean, in terms of keeping the Saddle Creek diaspora alive, it's really them. It's Christian Lee Hudson and Phoebe Bridgers, who are with their various projects recreating the world that I loved about music when I was a teenager for like the current generation, you know. And I really hope that they keep it up. Like, I hope that the sort of stratosphere popularity of Phoebe Bridgers doesn't like break that progress in the way that like whatever happened to St. Vincent, you know. It's like like I do like the new St. Vincent album a lot, but it's
probably my favorite of the last three. But yeah. I mean, I'm going from a diehard to kind of being like, you know, like every record is like a different, you know.
That's exactly my path too. Yeah.
I like to believe that she's on just like her own tip though, and it's just like I you know, not as aligned as I was with it, you know, during the Strange Mercy days, but definitely it's cool that she's still like going forward every album. But yeah, I mean, in terms of the Phoebe Bridgers stuff, like I still think you're seeing that, you know, the tidal wave of boy genius, like, you know, it hasn't really settled down too much. There's still so many people coming out nowadays that are just like the biggest, you know, like the Faye Websters and the, you know, Elizabeth McAlpines of the world, you know, that are just like totally on top right now, making the most like depressing, you know, like early to mid 2000s indie music revival stuff, you know.
Yeah. It's funny because it's like it's so weird that it happened that way, right? Where it was like, it was something about, it definitely built off of the success of Punisher, but the boy genius went so wild. You know, it's not like Lucy and Julian Baker are more famous than Phoebe Bridgers, you know?
Right.
So it's like It would be like if the Monsters of Folk album was somehow the most wildly popular thing Conor Oberst had ever done, you know? Because you'd be like, what?
It's so funny. I mean, I saw that's getting a big reissue soon, right?
Yeah, actually just came out on Friday.
Oh, that's sick. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
I still listen to that Dear God song all the time. That song's so good. And again, that's another, like, they're using samples and stuff. They're getting a little, like a little out there. It's definitely a big inspiration for me when I first got into that record when I was like 14 or whatever it came out.
Yeah, that's a great one. I that album to me, I think of it a lot when I am like taking pleasure in any kind of artistic collaboration. Because I'm a person who definitely early on had a really hard time doing that and now love doing that. And so, but I remember like listening to it and hearing what Conor Oberst sounded like when he was clearly working so closely with M. Ward and Jim James. And I was like, this dude sounds so happy. Like, he sounds so happy to be doing this. And it's like, I remember that all the time. I'm like, that's the power of, that's why Conor Oberst has spent the last 10 years of his life just starting different bands with people all the time.
Right.
Because it's like, he went from being a sort of solo genius weirdo to being like, I don't want to do this by myself ever if I don't have to.
Yeah, for real. It's satisfying as it is to, get to the end of a long creative project that you've been, doing the whole tortured artist thing, like to just kind of get yourself through and like self mythologizing so you can just like, keep pushing. I think that, definitely recently I've been, we're writing as a band now and I'm enjoying that process way more of just like, being like, I have my specific set of skills and my flavors that I can bring to this, but ultimately if I'm the be all end all of everything that happens, then I'm gonna go nuts because I'm never gonna make it sound like it is in my head. So it's helpful to have other people, not only contribute a lot, but also be like kind of a buffer of your ideas to like really know. Because I mean, I'm sure you've had it where you're writing something where you're like, this is genius, this is the best thing I've ever written, and the next day you listen to it, it's just like garbage, like, so it's nice to kind of have that like immediate, like, a bullshit filter, I guess.
Yeah. It actually does, is we were talking earlier about this, the long timeline of creative projects. It actually speeds that up because the only other way to get that is to like work on something and then forget about it for a week and then come back to it and revisit it with fresh eyes. Yeah. But when you work with other people, you can skip that step because they already have the other eyes. Yeah,
totally. And it's just an excuse to hang out with people you like too,
That
so
too.
It's like playing D&D or something, like,
or having a podcast.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Been beat up and battered around.
A couple of days ago, I ripped the handle of my car door clean off. I was in a Whole Foods parking lot. I just come back from Guitar Center, where I sometimes screw around with the expensive keyboards and record them with my phone to use on this podcast. I hadn't been there too long, and it wasn't like freakishly hot, so I don't think the door melted. And while I don't want to discourage the rumors that I have freakish Hulk strength, I don't think it was that either. I think it was just the universe trying to slow me down a little bit. 1, 2, 3, 4. You gotta understand, I've had a very busy month of May. For the last 2 years, I've been in this leadership academy at work, and at the moment we're in the midst of completing the program, my 5 classmates and I. We've developed a capstone project to implement at work, and we've been presenting it repeatedly to various collections of leaders. We've also been attending our last few events together, including TEDx Portsmouth, which is one of the biggest TEDx affiliate events currently in operation. This year's event sold out 800 seats in 25 minutes. We got ours reserved because our employer was the lead sponsor, which meant we also got exclusive access to a VIP lounge at the venue. If you know me, you know I loved that. I love a lanyard that gets me into secret places. There's nothing better. The VIP lanyards at this event looked like all the others, except they had a black strap instead of a red one. Simple, but effective. and the VIP lounge had a door that led directly out onto the street in front of the venue. And I made liberal use of it, always glancing out the window, looking for people that I knew, including many past guests of this show, and I would jump out and say hello and then vanish again into the mist like Batman. It was a lovely day. The event itself was very good. Drinks with my coworkers at a bar across the street afterwards was sublime.
Hey, 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 the end is near. On a good day, you can see the end from here. But it won't turn back now, though the way is clear. I will stay for the remainder.
And that was just one event out of like a dozen that I either attended or both attended and helped organize in May and late April. There was the annual conference of the New Hampshire Businesses for Social Responsibility, great conference. The keynote speaker was the author of a book called Reimagining Capitalism in a World on Fire, fucking sick. Then there was Leadership Seacoast's Arts and Culture Day, an event that my colleague Rachel and I have helped assemble 2 years in a row in a dizzying gauntlet of phone calls and spreadsheets and haggling that results in a day-long seminar and scavenger hunt for 40 professionals that exposes them to the lesser-known arts organizations and venues in our area, like my old friends at the New Hampshire Theatre Project, and a bunch of new friends at other venues and organizations who were so cooperative and friendly. It's so fun to call a stranger with a scheme and get them on board immediately. And that is what volunteering with nonprofits on the organizational side is like almost all the time. And speaking of the New Hampshire Theatre Project, another event was a panel discussion that I hosted there after a play called Collected Stories, which is just one single story despite the title. It's a play about a dispute among authors about who gets to tell what story, about whom, and why.
Did you give it away? Did you give it away for free? Don't you give it away? Let's try to keep it in our family. I know you know desolation.
So naturally, I interviewed a copyright lawyer, a historian, and a science fiction author on stage after the play. Many thanks to Genevieve Achel for organizing that and for recruiting me, and to my sister for coming along for moral support. It was a really fun evening. And there were more events, generally more than one per week, all month long. It even prompted an internet friend to ask me very politely, what is your job that you just seem to go to conferences constantly? A great job is the answer. Although, full disclosure, I took PTO to volunteer at about half of those events. Still, it's all very much a part of my career and my goals. You know, for years, I aspired to be a mover and a shaker in the community, a fixture that people knew and appreciated. And, you know, setting humility aside for a second, like, I have succeeded in that regard. Walking around Portsmouth with my coworkers in the Leadership Academy, they joked that it was like being with their mom at the grocery store as a kid. Everybody kept stopping me to chat with me. You know, I've long wanted that, and I have it now. And quick special shout out to one guy who stopped me, friend of the show, Russ Grazier, who tracked me down at TEDx to give me tickets to his school's jazz night concert the following evening. I brought my friend Dave. Russ did a jazz cover of a Smiths song. It was a blast.
Good times for a change. See, the luck I've had can make a good man turn bad. So
But yeah, I was running around all month long, running myself ragged, and naturally, things started to break down. Primarily my car, and not just the door, and my health. All right, let's take stock of the current crises. My car, which is both running out of gas as we speak, as usual, and also experiencing some really weird electrical failure. I have a bunch of these low-quality recordings from my car as I drove around while trying to capture the experience of what was happening to it in real time. So the first thing was, it randomly turned off in traffic one day. I was at a red light on my way into a store when the car just died. And I managed to start it up again, but the power steering failed, so parking in the parking lot was pretty dicey, but I managed it. And then I learned from some Googling that in most cases when the power steering fails in a Hyundai, you just turn the car off for 10 minutes and start it again. That worked. So file that one away, fellow Hyundai drivers. But the random short outs at red lights continued. Plus this weird thing where while I was moving, the car would lurch and the tachometer, which is the one that measures RPMs, it would drop to 0. Now my car was still moving, so I was pretty sure the tires were still rotating. But I could also just sort of justify that one to myself. See, maybe 3 months ago, I was trying to fill my tires at one of those gas station air machines, and I was parked a little bit too far away, and I snapped the little metal nozzle right off the rear tire. But I got it kind of jammed back on, and the tire didn't seem to be leaking, so I just left it for a few weeks. And then my mechanic noticed during inspection, and he was able to insert a new nozzle at the expense of screwing with the car's air pressure warning system. Which, when he told me that was going to happen, I was like, honestly, go for it. Who gives a shit? You know, if we live in New England, that thing goes off every cold day anyway. But now I thought, oh, maybe it also screwed up the tachometer. Which shouldn't be stressful. Like, what do I care how many RPMs I'm doing? What's the correct number? 50? 1 million? I have no idea. But it was stressful because it felt indicative of a larger problem. Which turned out to be true.
You get the car, I'll get the night off. You'll get the chance to take the world apart and figure out how it works. Don't let me know what you find out.
My car being in trouble turned out to be like an existential threat to me. Staying busy is not just a career mantra for me, it's a way of life, possibly of survival. If you listen to this podcast during the pandemic, you know what it was doing to me. I couldn't deal with not being out there in the world, and now I'm making up for lost time.
I wanna see it when you find out what comet stars and moons are all about. Wanna see their faces turn to backs of heads and slowly get smaller.
The idea of what being down a car would do for me and my family's mobility, mostly me, it was too much. But the idea of having to buy a new car? Having a car payment again? Inconceivable. Non-starter. The good news was, my car guy told me it was just the crank sensor, a part I've never heard of before. Turns out it costs about $400. But I had to wait for it to come in, so I kept driving that car around for like 2 more full weeks. I drove it over 600 miles. Did it keep randomly shorting out? Yes. Did I learn to deal with it? Yeah. It just stayed close to the shoulder in case I had to pull over.
You get the car, I'll get the night off. You'll get a chance to take the world apart, figure out how it works. Don't let me know what you find out.
Now, why was I driving so much? Obviously, all of those events. But also, I can no longer work from home. I'm very lucky that my job affords me a lot of flexibility. Sometimes I can work from my home office, sometimes I work from the back office, sometimes branches, sometimes from the woods. That flexibility feeds creativity and different kinds of work and generates new ideas. And being able to work from home, at least at the beginning of each day, has also been a lifesaver with a kid getting ready for school every day and the bottleneck that creates in the house. But yeah, at the moment, I can't do that because my home office no longer exists. That was all right. We have decided that the time has come to finally rid ourselves of all the horsehair plaster and particle board and likely lead paint on the second floor of our house. We spent a few weeks getting everything out of our second floor and moving the entire family down onto the first floor. I now sleep in the dining room next to the piano. And the second floor is now completely sealed off, like you can't get up there other than via a ladder outside. The timing is right for this project in that we will have the time this summer to work on it. Do we have the money? Well, I guess we'll see. As of this recording, I still don't know how much my car is going to cost. It's possible the timing isn't right. I don't know. I don't want to think about it. We're doing it. But in order to work from home, I need a dedicated space near where the internet's wired into the wall. And the only place that is currently possible is the basement. Which, okay, when some people say their basement, they mean a rec room. When I was a teenager, me and Morgan lived in our basement. It was like that. When I talk about my basement at my house, think dungeon. Think catacombs. Think ancient aqueduct.
I must go on standing. You can't break that which isn't yours. I must go on standing. I'm not my own. It's not my choice.
For the most part, this is totally fine, this little home construction project. It's fun to live in a little compressed space again, to consider what I own that is essential and what's not, to appreciate what space we do have and what work on the house we've already done. It's fun to think about what the new spaces upstairs will be like and what we can do with them once they're ready. And I see a lot of potential in being in the office every day for my organizational discipline and my professional awareness. I'm also finally going to the on-campus gym. But it's not great when you still have to go into the office and work when one eye is bright red and half swollen shut. That's the third thing that's happening lately. And by lately, I mean since March. I have weird eyes. I have since about 2017 when I was diagnosed with glaucoma and had to go on a long search for the right medication for me. A lot of them did weird stuff to my eyes and eyelashes. I've dealt with whole years of my life where my eyes didn't look or feel familiar to me. Long periods of time where it looks like my eyes are closed in every photo, even though they're not. And they're always red. They're always at least a little bit red at all times. I literally warned my bosses at work about it. I promise I'm not drunk or stoned or something. I just have red eyes. But a few months ago, it started to get way worse. I won't freak you out with the details, but I've had a lot of discomfort and a lot of stress about that discomfort. I've been to the eye doctor repeatedly with no real sense of what it is, but after all kinds of topical attempts at solutions, I mean, picture me just straight pouring bottles of Clear Eyes on my face like Gatorade. I now do have a regimen that works, that keeps it at bay, but if I stray from that regimen at all, my eye swells right up, veins pop out, blood red, gets kind of gooey. I said I wouldn't freak you out with the details, but it did happen earlier this week, and I had to leave my half-accessible house to go to work for one of my final Leadership Academy events in a car that didn't work with an eye that looked horrifying. If I could have taken the day off, I guess I would have, but, what would I have done? Poked at my eye all day and panicked? Instead, I just wore sunglasses around the office when I could feel... I know what it feels like when my eye is filling with blood. So with all this stuff happening to me, I think it's probably clear to you, as it is clear to me, that I should try to be less busy. But I don't know how. I signed up to volunteer with 2 more nonprofit organizations during the course of the month. I move fast. I always have. I've always tried to do a lot. For many years, people have told me that they admire the volume of my creative output, but it still feels slow to me. There's always more to do, something else to get to do. The obvious lesson of this month that I should slow down is one that I am just straight up refusing to learn. I would honestly rather suffer the consequences rather than stop, or even take the time to address these issues at their roots. I feel like I can hear a clock ticking. I don't really know what it's counting down to, but sooner or later it will be something. So, no. But I want to slow down, and I don't want to stop and fix anything. I want to keep running.
And I would ask you